Hello, this is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology, doing a tutorial for JD239. The point of this tutorial is how to take maquettes completed in Rhino and finish those maquettes as designs in Painter. So here I have a couple of maquettes. Control A all, just Control A, Control G to group. Set the line weight to 0.33. Zoom in to confirm I'm getting something that is what I want. And export. Setting everything to the highest quality. And going over into Painter. Select it, cut it, and paste it. Go through our usual post-processing steps, where I will rotate the layer 11 degrees. And counter-rotate it. Scramble those pixels a bit. I'm going to get rid of the outline, the border, so I'll just select my drawings. Control I will invert the selection. Control X will cut everything that was selected. This is going to be a little dark for me. I don't like working in black. I prefer dark gray. So I'm just going to take the opacity down on that layer. And then put a fresh layer above. I'm going to actually name this template. And then I'm going to lock it so I don't draw on it accidentally. Okay. And I'll commence drawing. Now, I can start drawing. I'm going to do the views of this ring, so I can start from basically any place, but I'll go ahead and start with the 3/4 view, since that has been our primary topic of conversation. I do need my original drawing in here so that I can see what I'm trying to replicate. It's right here. I'll just gel it. Is about where you want to be when you're drawing detail work. Any more zoomed in than that is going to be a little bit crazy. Okay, I can see that I lost a line here in Rhino that replicates this thickness over here. I can also see that my paper texture is really coarse, so I'm going to go to soft press watercolor paper. So going to create that thickness. And now I'll create the pattern. Each of these patterns, I'll start with the pattern that's facing me most directly head on, which is here. My patterns are going to be a little bit broader than the original because, as you'll recall if you watched the maquette making video, when I made the maquette, the spacing on these ended up being a little wider than what the designer had envisioned. I'm going to come around here and I'm going to create these scrolls. And actually, while I'm at that, I'm going to do them in the front view as well. Now, of course, here I could, if I wanted to, I could activate symmetrical drawing. I'll zoom in for just a second to make sure I get this positioned right. Then zoom back out. You really don't want to come in closer than 200% if you can help it. So, I can actually finish up these scrolls a little bit better. And it is getting awfully tiny. I hate to zoom in more than this, but I'm going to have to if I want control. Here I'm just going to let it be a bead that rises outward, a domed surface, like so. entrance. Yeah, that's right. And these scrolls will have a thickness, and the thickness is bold enough that you actually don't see the edge of it here, so it's a substantial thickness. Remember, if I don't have a hard corner, I want to break the edge in a couple of spots so that it feels rounded. So the edge of that feels rounded off. And that should suffice to, now this needs to come over. And I actually won't see much of this because it's falling away and foreshortened, but I do have the thickness, and so for the thickness, I'm going to once again bump off this edge a little bit, this line a little bit, so you can just feel the thickness going in. And there's the head from the front view. I'm looking at this front view. I'm realizing I'm probably going to want to bring this opening a little lower on these because they're a little bit longer as they come around the finger. And I'm going to want to make sure that I carry that piece of information up here in my 3/4 view. Now, I've made a mistake. You can't see it, but I have left the mirror drawing on. It's important that I turn that off, because I'm creating the same drawing over here, which in this particular case didn't matter a whole lot, but it could have been a problem in another scenario. Okay, you can see the thickness on these is right here. We obviously don't want a hard corner here, a V. We want that to be curved. This is going to come back and see these directional lines. It's going to follow those because it's in perspective. This is also going to be rounded. And this is also going to tuck back this way, along with these kind of perspective lines that you can see going on. It's going to follow suit. I want a rounded corner, so I will knock the corners off of those lines. Now here's an interesting thing. You will see that this feels really off-center, and that's possibly true. It's possibly part of the maquette because it's an oval and not a circle. There are going to be slight distortions in the array as you or the flow. But where we arrayed along a curve to create these, we popped up some isoparms in the cat. But now it's the drawing that's going to rule. So if it feels imbalanced to me, I will correct it. Now remember, we decided that that opening would be a little bit lower. And we don't want a hard corner. And this will be rounded on the bottom. We want to be sure to capture that. So you can see we're going for an illusion. We want to keep the same kinds of thicknesses going that we would expect. We want to get a nice three-dimensionality going. There is that motif. That'll be the most accurate motif, or the most head-on, the most complete motif of any of the ones we get to draw. We're not going to see much of its thickness over, or any of its thickness over this direction. Coming on to this motif now, drawing up this scroll. This scroll has a thickness that does lean in. Okay? And when we draw the arm of the scroll, it'll be foreshortened. It won't be as wide as this. But we will see a thickness. See this thickness here? That thickness will be present over here as well. And actually you can see the thickness better here. See how thick this is? That's actually how thick this will be. So I assumed that Rhino had just not drawn me that line, but actually looking at this thickness, it's actually because that's so thick there wouldn't be a line. So we're going to have quite a bit of thickness of material here. Okay, and remember in the drawing these touch here, so I need to get this somehow all the way over here. And these are supposed to also touch. Now it's okay if they aren't circular, it's okay if they're elliptical slightly in this direction, because I do see the tops of them, so there is some foreshortening going on. So here's the thickness coming in here. Here's the thickness coming in here. We're going to see where these two thicknesses meet. And our two scrolls meet. This thickness is going to continue under here. The direction that line's going to take is going to be something that makes sense with these other perspective lines. And that's a start. I'm going to leave this corner here pretty well delineated for now. I don't want to have to find it again. So they are going to be kind of blocky as I figure them out. Okay, this edge really disappears. That's a very realistic looking thing. I'm happy that the maquette shows that. This is looking a little full to me, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and let this window open up. And now I will round things off. I kept the corners intact for a bit until I felt comfortable with what I was drawing. And now I will let things round off. There's the second scroll. These scrolls over here I'm not going to be really able to see. I know this is one, so I'll just make sure it's rounded and pretty. I know this is another one. There's the corner. I'll round that off as well. And that's all that I'll see of those scrolls. I'm going to come over this way. I do want the corner to show until I'm certain that I've drawn this well. So I see my thickness here. I'll replicate that pretty much in here. It'll be a little bit less because I'm more towards the front. Something like that. This does this. I want to see this distance that I have right in here. I want to make sure that I preserve it over there. Okay, you can see how this is becoming very dimensional now. Yeah, with this level of detail, I really do have to be zoomed in. I don't like to work this close in because I tend to overwork the drawings and put too much detail in. But with these little scrolls, there's no way I can get away with being further out. Now, there's a decision to be made what's going to happen here as it comes down and it meets the shank. I'm going to decide to let the shank roll up into this a little bit. Let it somewhat blend into this scroll. I still do have a bit of a corner down here. On past this, it's going to become very vague. I'll just do that. Something like that. Now the only thing I need to do now with this basket is to cut off some corners so that it looks rounded, so that these scrolls look sculptural. So there's the head. Now I'm going to attend to the shank. I'm going to break this corner. I'm going to let this center flute actually feed right up in between those scrolls. I could make this thinner on this side to show that it's rounding over, but instead of making it thinner, I'll make the center one a little bit thicker. It'll create the same comparative difference. This detail is so thin right now that I don't want to whittle away if I don't have to. I'm going to wish that I had removed these center lines that I so carefully put in on my maquette, because I'm not going to need them. And that just means I have to continually erase them. Because this is fluted the way it is, I'm going to assume that I round this edge a little bit more than that the fluting actually ends on the bottom for sizing and picks up about here. I'm going to create that same shaving on this side. And that just implies that I've rounded the shank a little bit, the cross section of it. And I don't care that the line has some inconsistencies to it. I want this to look hand-drawn. Nothing is going to show on the shank over on this side. Now what I need to do is break some corners again. I don't want to see a hard corner on this flute, so the 3/4 view is done. I can make the prongs a little nicer. In the maquette, they're just cylinders. So particularly these two that I can see more of a side view on, I can show them tucking down into the head in a little more floral, a little prettier fashion. This one I can't see the side of, so it doesn't matter. Three-quarter view is done. Coming back into my top view, turning back on, my front view, turning back on my symmetrical drawing. I don't care for this curve. I drew it quickly in the maquette. It's not very sensitive. In the three-quarter view, it's in perspective, so it doesn't really show. But I do want to show how this tucks up into those scrolls. And I want a little prettier treatment. I don't care for this hard corner here. that's good. I'm going to clean up the midlines. This is where it's kind of challenging using the mirror line, because if it's not exactly right, it's going to cause problems. Here it's easy. And my prongs kind of got separated from the piece, so I'm going to tuck them in more. I want that to feel a little softer. I'm going to thin out this girdle line. It's actually scalloped in the model. I don't need to have that in my drawing. And that would be the front view. Top view. For the top view, I would probably want to move this up. And I'd want to activate the horizontal. And position it so that that breaks properly all the way around. You know, I'm going to go crazy trying to do this. You have to remember that the smallest increment in Painter is a pixel, so you're never going to be exactly in the middle. Okay? So for each one of these scrolls on top, I'm going to have a roundness. Okay. I would actually see this pattern inside a little bit. I can indicate it a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy. I am going to break the corners though, so that it feels rounded. And this process would just continue. Across all of the scrolls. When I'm through with the students, this will be a finished technical drawing. There will be no reason for me to go back in Rhino and draw it. This will be plenty clean, and it'll be prettier than anything I can come up with in Rhino. Anyway, so there would be no point in doing that. Now, as far as the shank is concerned, all I'm going to do is round that. Okay, so now I have the top and the front view. I'm going to leave the side view. I don't have time, and you've seen enough to understand what we're doing. Turn off mirror drawing, zoom out. not bad. We have a 3/4 top and front view, nice and accurate. If you're sensitive to this, you're going to notice that this is bigger than this. And I promised you an accurate size 3/4 view. Okay? You got me. It's not actual size, it's too big. The question would be, why is that? Remember where we put the circle that guaranteed this would be actual size. We put it in the middle. Okay, so that means this is actual size. But in perspective, as things get closer to you, they get larger. So everything in the middle of the ring is actual size. Everything above is going to be slightly larger. Everything below is going to be slightly smaller. Okay? And there's nothing to be done for that. I could put the ball here, but then I'm putting it right in the middle of my detail work, and the ring bore will look too small. There is no perfection in a 3/4 view. This is the closest I have found, particularly because when you're dealing with stones on important jewelry, clients don't ever want their stones to look small. I'm just tickling this as I talk. So it's actually smarter or safer to make a stone look bigger than it is to make it look smaller. Okay? If your client has an issue with this, or if this really bothers you, really the only thing you could do would be to drag a window around this, Control-Alt-C to copy all the way through, Control-V to paste it, and then go to Free Transform. Grab a hold of the corner of this, and scale it up until the scrolls look about right. And then commit transform. Okay? You can do that. The difference it makes can be substantial. But you'll notice that the ring bore now seems too small. The stone seems the right size though, and these seem the right size. So you're always making a compromise. Okay? That's it. Thanks for watching.